Okay, this is my review of the Longevity Migweld 200S. Been researching this thing for a really long time, and had a lot of trouble finding a review of any that had any substantial information on it. Found one online by another guy. He did a pretty good job, but I just have some other areas of the machine that I'd like to cover for everyone. Maybe someone else is interested in buying it, I don't know. The first thing I want to cover, which is one of the biggest things I noticed when I received this machine, is the power cable. Grab this camera. So, this machine came shipped with a NEMA 6 50 amp plug. Cool. Everyone has this for welder, that's great. But you probably won't be able to see this, but this cord is 12 gauge. I don't know if anyone is aware of this at Longevity, but a 12 gauge wire is only rated for 20 amps, so therefore this plug is way overrated for the size of this wire. Also on the back of the machine, I believe this is a 50 amp breaker. So if something were to happen in this machine and it started pulling over 20 amps, this wire is going to be the first thing to let loose, which could cause a fire and all kinds of other ugly stuff. So what I ended up doing is cutting the plug off, putting a 20 amp plug on here, which I'll get into later. The machine runs fine, even at wide open amperage when welding, so turned out great for me because I only have 20 amp 220 service in my garage anyways. But yeah, so I want to go over the construction of the unit. When I opened the box, I was really impressed at the thickness of the steel. The paint job is awesome. And even the labeling looks really nice, so I was pretty happy about that. And the machine's also pretty light because it's an inverter machine. If you buy a 110 unit, they're typically going to be a transformer machine, which is older technology, and those are great, but they're kind of heavy, so this thing really isn't that bad to lug around. I think it may weigh 30 pounds or so, so it's a pretty decent weight. So on the front here, I hope I'm not getting glare with this light I have facing on this thing, but so right here we have wire feed and stick amps, MIG voltage and arc force for stick, and waveform. And up here we have process, stick, MIG, wire feed, spool gun. You can buy a spool gun for this machine. I didn't. I don't really plan on welding aluminum with a MIG machine. I'll probably eventually get a TIG machine here shortly, but yeah, so the knobs turn really nice. All three of these down here. These click really solid. Everything feels good. Like I said, I tried to review this thing, try to find reviews for this thing the best I could, but I really couldn't find anything that covered all this. So front, you got your MIG connection. Negative terminal, positive terminal, and input for the wire feed motor. So the other item that I want to cover is this door. A review I saw from, I believe it was Chucky 2009, who did this same machine. He was complaining that the door didn't shut, and he was sort of slamming it. Well, this thing has weather stripping on the outside of this door. It goes all the way around. So what it does, when you go to close this thing, and this is kind of hard to do with one hand, it closes really snug. So get it up, it's like closing your car door. Get up to the machine, push on it, and it clicks really nice. Now what it does, it makes a pretty good seal all around this door to keep dust and any liquids out, which hopefully there aren't any liquids on your welder, but yeah, it works really nice. Opens easy, closes easy, just got to push on it kind of tight, and works great for me. The next item I want to cover is the accessories. Move this out of the way. Move this out of the way. I got a dirt bike shock here I'm working on. I'll get that out of the way. Alright, so first thing is the stick electrode. It's pretty decent. I guess for a $600 machine you can't really ask for much. I don't plan on doing any stick welding, but yeah, it's there if you want to. They give you I believe it's a 2-pound spool of ER70S-6 MIG wire. So if you're running gas, that's great. Gives you a good start. They give you some 30 thousandths tips here and a tool to take them out and install them. Regulator, you can see on the right, that's PSI, and on the left, that's going to be your flow. I have not used this thing yet, so I'm not really sure how well it works. I'm used to seeing the flow meters which use a ball that sort of gets pushed up when the argon or CO2 comes out. So yeah. Ground clamp, pretty decent. I probably have 2 hours of welding on this machine, and I decided to do a review for it. So you can see I got a little bit of arcing going on there. The hinge is a little loose, so if you wiggle this thing sideways, it sort of gets offset, you can see. Other than that, it's pretty solid. Machine brass connector, works really well. And the last accessory is the actual MIG gun. This thing's pretty sweet. It's got a swivel on it. It's kind of tough to do with one hand, but you can see how it swivels. Sort of helps you out to get into maybe a tighter place or more ergonomic for you. The trigger I think is pretty awesome. You can do a short pull up here or a long pull down here. And machine brass tip. Works really well. It's got a strain relief on both sides here and here up on the gun. So it doesn't really kink that wire when you're welding. And you also get a manual with a CD, and it's okay. It really doesn't have any settings in it. Like most welders will have a setting inside the door. This thing doesn't. I'm not sure why. But yeah, so we'll start hooking this thing up, and I'll show you some other things I ran into when I purchased this and started using it. So I'm going to set the camera down and start hooking stuff up. Alright, so ground clamp. You're running DC electric positive. Ground clamp goes right in here. Close fit. All good. MIG gun. Pushes right in. It's got an O-ring seal for the gas. I'd recommend greasing it because it looks like I cut it. So grease that before you put it in. So that'll go in. Open the door. A little wing nut over here. I'll grab the camera. Wing nut right here screws in the clamp on that. Tighten that down. That's that. And the MIG feed goes in right here. That's it. Then you want to, of course, go to MIG, wire feed, and then just set your parameters up here. These settings are all base 10. So 10 equals 200, 1 equals 0. So if you need 100, you got to go to 5, and so on. Same with the voltage. I think the minimum voltage on these machines, 1 is 15 volts, 10 I believe is 24. So you can do some spray arc if you get up above roughly 21 volts, depending on which which current you're running here. So I try to use the Miller calculator when I can, and this, man, volts are so touchy with a MIG gun. you know, a tenth of a volt is like a mile, so it's really touchy. Okay, so one of the things I found out after I purchased this machine is you cannot take it out of DC electrode positive, and I'll show you why. Typically on a MIG machine, you have connections in this area which let you change your MIG electrode from positive to negative. This machine only has one strap, which is positive. So if you're like me and you have some things you want to run flux core, you're going to have to do it in DC electrode positive. So if any of you have ever ran flux core in DC electrode positive, it's terrible. You get probably 10 times the amount of spatter you would if you were to run DC electrode negative. So I called Longevity, talked to Simon and a few of his customer service guys, and they were super helpful. It was kind of difficult explaining that I wanted to run the flux wire in DC electrode negative, but it turns out you can't do that. So if you plan on running flux core wire, I'd recommend getting the Migweld 140, but I needed the extra power, so I decided to keep the machine. They offered to exchange it out for me, and they were just super in the whole customer service thing. They did the best they could, and I'm really happy with the machine, so I'll just make do with what I have and run gas all the time if I have to. I'm actually thinking possibly when the machine's out of warranty, I'll probably do my own wiring and put a negative terminal over there so I can run my MIG electrode negative. So yeah, but that's it. Could probably run some wire in this thing. Let me shut the camera off and I'll come back. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to load some wire in this machine. So there's no flux core that I can't really use. So when you crack this door open, you'll have your big adapter for an 8-inch spool wire. If you're going to be using a small spool, you have to back this wing nut out. Take the wing nut out, you get this hub, and there's a little black spacer. Keep black spacer, keep that. So what you want to do is make sure this washer is in the back. Throw your wire on, get your key spacer, and your wing nut. Now I'm not going to actually feed this wire through because I'm not near my 220 plug, so I cannot power the machine. But when you route your wire, you want it to come off of this spool clockwise. So your wire should come down here like this, into here, and you'll get it fed into your MIG gun. Put your clamp down, pull that up. There's a button here called quick feed. You'll just hit that. It'll feed it all out to your gun, and yeah, when you're ready to weld, it'll be there. So. A couple of settings on this thing. Like I said, these parameters are all base 10. So if 10 is equal to 200 amps, 5 is going to be equal to 100 amps, 2.5 will be 50 amps, 7.5 will be 150, and so forth. I really recommend, if you buy this machine, you'll want to download a Miller calculator, because it'll actually give you a good voltage for whatever amperage you want to run, and of course a good amperage for what thickness material you have. I have not figured out what waveform does, but the guys at Longevity told me that if you're going to run flux core, you want to take this waveform and turn it all the way down, and MIG wire feed. And with DC electrode positive, you got to run it a little bit hotter because a lot of the heat is being brought up into your wire, so the workpiece doesn't get as hot. Of course, you're going to get a shit ton of spatter, and it's going to get everywhere. So I'd recommend not even running flux core on this machine. But if you're like me and you don't have a tank yet, you got to do what you got to do. So But yeah, so overall, I'm really happy with the machine. It's freaking solid. If I had to guess, this is probably 40 thousandths sheet on the outside. The handle's really solid. Does not shake around or move or anything. It's got nice plastic feet on it, so you're not scratching the shit out of the bottom of the machine. It does have a CO2 hook up here. I just noticed this is 50 hertz, and I'm running 60, so. And the duty cycle on this thing is 60%, so this fan kicks ass. It's a little loud, but hey, 60% duty cycle will do that. You know, they gotta cool it down. So, yeah, but that's it for my review. Anybody has any questions? Hit it up and I'll answer you. Thanks for checking it out.